How do you get clients to trust your process? I'm Darla LeDoux, the founder of Sourced. Let's dive into that today. If you are doing transformational work in any way, it's so important that your clients trust the container you've created. In order for someone to shift their energy, to shift their field, transform their life, they're going to need to do a little bit of vulnerable work and see something they've never seen and be able to really trust you to hold them in the vulnerable process of looking in their shadow. How do you do this? And especially if you want to host groups or host retreats, this is extra important because the client's not only looking to you, but they're looking around and hoping that you as the guide are going to be able to hold the group and have it feel safe all around. So I want to share a foundational piece that I teach. You've maybe seen it before, called the anatomy of a transformation. And this is the first thing we need to know to really understand the work that you're actually doing. And then I'm going to share with you 5 ways that you can signal safety to your client and help them know they can relax into your container and trust your support as they start to look for a new truth for themselves. So here's the foundation of a lot of the work that I teach our transformational leaders in our Source Leader program. It's called the anatomy of a transformation. So the first step in the anatomy is commitment. Commitment. So in the commitment stage, your client is deciding that they have a desire or a discomfort that is greater than their fear of getting vulnerable, basically, and seeing a new truth, or greater than their fear of change. Because remember, as humans, the results we're getting are actually the results that some part of us wants, even if, some other part of us thinks we don't. We want to help our clients be committed to something that's greater than their fear of their own transformation, maybe their fear of their own greatness, right? The second step is what I call the sourced experience. I'm just going to put SE here. And the sourced experience has 3 stages: release, receive, rise. This right here is the key of everything we're talking about here around how do you get clients to trust your process. Another way of saying this is, how do you get your clients to release? And this release is really about releasing control. By the way, this third stage is integrate. We're not going to talk about it today, but just to be thorough, I will put it in here. So this is where the transformation happens. And this is where you need your client to trust you. So when they're really committed, right? There's something they want that's greater than their fear of change. More than likely, unless there's some signals that make it feel unsafe, they're really going to trust you. They're so desirous of the change. They're going to be willing to release control. By the way, releasing control does not mean giving up power or sovereignty. It simply means I am going to, like our old pattern that's hidden from our view that we want to transform, typically is about controlling or knowing how it's going to go. It's knowing if I do life in the way I've been doing life, I'm going to get the results I've been getting. And we would rather have that than something new, right? Than a new possibility. And so if anyone's stuck in a pattern, which by the way, we're all probably stuck in a pattern right now of some sort that maybe is important, maybe isn't. But if we're stuck in a pattern, we are just wanting to control. We want to know how it's going to go. You need your container to feel safe enough and that they think you're a strong enough guide that they can release control. And all that means is I'm going to open up to the possibility that there's some way of showing up to life that I can't see right now, that's different than how I've done it, that's going to actually get me a result I like more. That's all this is. They just have to be open and willing to do that, but they're only going to be open and willing in a space that they can trust, right? So this next part is receiving truth. So the reason this is so important is because when they release that control and they open up, they're going to see a truth they haven't seen. And I say there's a small t truth, which is something that's actually not true. It's a lie they believed as a kid that they thought was true, that they've based their whole life on. We've all done this. And then there's the capital T truth, which is actually the soul-aligned truth that's going to lead to freedom and the results they really want. The thing is, to get to the capital T truth, we need to move through the small t truth most of the time. And the small t truth, like seeing it, is going to feel really vulnerable, really exposed, really tender, because the client's been hiding it from themselves for maybe a lifetime. By the way, we've all done this. It's how the human operates. When they release control, they're now going to be in this space of seeing something about themselves they've never seen. It might be like a bad news insight, like something they don't love, or it could be their power. It could be some aspect of them that they shut down. Right? That's a vulnerable space to be in, and they need to know that that's going to be okay. That's the first piece. You just need this background. And now I'm going to move into 5 ways you can let them know that. So here are 5 ways you can get the client to trust your process. Number 1 is commitment. Let me tell you what I mean by that. So commitment means that they're committed, and that especially if you're hosting a group, that the people in the group are also committed to a transformation, to seeing something they haven't seen. Whether you have individual sales conversations with each person and walk through their desire and their discomfort and what the fear might be, make sure they're ready to see something they haven't seen and you've approved them to register for the retreat, or you've got marketing that really screens people. You don't want it to be a surprise that we're going to do transformational work here, that we're going to go deep. You really want to educate people through your marketing so that they know that that's what they're signing up for. In the beginning, I remember, I even had mentors say, sell them what they want, give them what they need, sneak it in the back door. And I did that. And, it worked because I believe in what I do. There was always that 1 or 2 people who thought, well, I thought I just came here for this. I didn't want this other thing, right? And you could feel some of that resistance in the room. If you can have clients who are committed, that are coming into your container already, they're already moving in that direction. So that's the first piece. The second piece is clarity. These are all going to be C's, by the way. Let me tell you what you want to have clarity about. You want to have clarity about your brand, like who you are as a brand, your values, your attributes, your beliefs. Like we have our clients establish their foundational beliefs as coaches and leaders so that you can walk your talk. And then you also want to have agreements within your container that are clear and that you reinforce. You can't create a transformational business on the idea of what you think people should have that you're not willing to do for yourself. You've got to have the brand and the agreements in the room, right? Like how we be with one another. And then you've got to embody that for yourself as a leader and be willing to reinforce it. In other words, especially if you're in a group, people are going to be looking to you to hold the boundaries you said you would hold. If you have an agreement that people have consent before offering coaching to one another, and then you watch it happen, that there's like rogue advice being given and you don't call it out, that's going to create a lack of safety for other people who are witnessing that, right? So you've got to have that clarity. The next piece is compassion. Now, compassion is one of the magics that we teach in our Sourced Magic framework. And a lot of our clients have a lot of compassion magic, but not everybody has that super strongly. Some people are super intuitive and get downloads and stuff, but they're not as with the client. So compassion, there's two things I want to share about compassion. So the first is holding that clean space of non-judgment. Compassion magic is pure non-judgment. That's where love is, right? Love is non-judgment. So you're holding that space for people and they feel it and they know it's okay that whatever they discover here, you can hold it. You're not going to judge it. You're not going to be afraid of it. You can hold it, right? And then the second piece of compassion is feeling with them, not fixing them. Feeling with them, not fixing them. So a strong compassion magic is able to watch someone experience the pain of being with this truth that they haven't seen before. I mean, maybe it's pain, maybe it's joy, maybe it's love, which, by the way, some coaches are more afraid of joy and love than they are of pain. So we want to be able to be with any of that and be with and feel with the client without trying to rescue them or take them out of it. And I'm telling you, this is so, so important, because the moment you try to fix this thing or make them feel better, they're going to see that you're seeing that something's wrong with it, or that they can't handle it. And they're going to want to shove it right back in the shadow. So compassion is feeling with and not fixing. Number 4 is context. And number 5 is content. So I'm going to talk about these together. Okay. So how to get clients to trust your process. You want to create context for them about what's in it for them to move through the process. And a lot of people miss this. They go right to content. They're doing exercises, they're teaching, and they're not framing up why someone wants this. So you want to always have a context first, whether it's by talking about the benefits of doing the work and checking for their alignment, or maybe it's sharing a story about someone who's done the work. You're creating context so that they're with you. And don't be afraid. We teach this in our Source Leader program. Don't be afraid to check who wants this. How important is that to you? What do you hear in that? So that you're aware of where they are in their thinking and you're honoring where they are, and that builds trust with you as well, that you're not going to abandon them somewhere in this process. Okay. Lastly is content. You want to have a framework that lets them know that you know where you're taking them. By the way, this is why we teach the anatomy to our Source Leader clients, because they can use that framework to let the client know how it's going to go. We're going to release, we're going to receive, we're going to rise. That's basically the 3 days of a retreat. You don't have to have so much content that you're micromanaging. First we do this, then we do this, then we do this, then we do this, and you're trying to plan it all out. You want to leave space for magic to show up, but you want to let them know that you have a plan, okay, in whatever way you do this. So we help our private clients to create their own framework or their way of teaching so that their clients know that they have a process and that they're not going to get lost somewhere in the process. We teach frameworks that our certification clients can steal and use on their, make their own words or use my words, but having a framework is super helpful. I'll give a couple of examples. So we have a retreat that we've done a couple times, and I'm just going to share, day 1, day 2, day 3, there's just a theme, right? There's hours, which creates a structure, and there's a theme of the content. So people can kind of imagine that this probably works, right? So day 1 is you are magic. Day 2 is know your nature. And day 3 is magic in action. So you can see it's not super detailed. It gives me a lot of freedom still as the guide to respond to what's coming up, but it gives the client the sense that you know where you're taking them. These 5 things are going to help people to know that you are a guide that can hold them. The last thing I want to say about this is, I teach something about helping you find your ideal client based on where they are on the onion, the layers of the onion. Are they, do they have a lot of layers they still need to work through, or are they on the outer edges and they've worked through a lot of them? Depending on where your client is, they may get it and have less resistance. So a client who's never done transformational work, they're closer in on the onion, they might be more resistant because they've never done this. They don't know what they're going to find in the shadow, and they're probably really afraid. I know when I started doing transformational work, I got physically sick every time because I was so nervous about what was going to happen. And I didn't even know that what was going to happen, but my body did, and I felt it, and I was very scared. The other piece, though, when someone's further out on the onion and they've done a lot of transformational work, the thing you want to know is those clients can tend to be more slippery. In other words, they kind of get it and they know a lot and they've done a lot, and whatever's still left to transform is really entrenched, right? That requires a different kind of strength and confidence in your knowing of how transformation works and your ability to bring leadership to those clients. The people in the middle are actually easier, right? Or the people who are kind of, have done some, but they're not yet experts, who are going to try to hide from this deep, deep thing that they haven't seen about themselves yet. So these 5 things still apply. I'm curious your experience with that, with clients trusting you. What do you think has helped them to trust you? And if they've been in resistance or slippery, why do you think that is? I'd love to hear. One of the things we talk about in our community is rites of passage, right? Like the things that happen that they've actually happened to all of us, but we think they've only happened to us. And having that slippery client, or the client in retreat that, crosses their arms and refuses to do the work, rite of passage. You are not alone. So tell me about it below this video, and we'll see you soon.